Your journey can only begin when the self-doubts stop. The first step is harnessing your bravery within. Believing in you is your host, Sean Dumas.
Hello and good day to you all. My name is Sean, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another Persevering as an Introvert episode on Bravery Within. You guys are amazing. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for continuing to invite me into your car or, into your ear there for a little bit while you're at work or at home there for an hour there and listen to everything that I'm talking about. It means the world to me that you guys are taking a few minutes there to make me a little bit a part of your life. I mean, it's fantastic. I never expected to have the reception that I'm getting. You guys are talking to me, emailing me, catching me while I'm out and about in the public and stuff there. It's fantastic. I love talking to you guys. You guys are submitting your own dad jokes of the day, and anytime that I get that ones that I can use, I make sure that I give you credit for it, so that way you know, hey, I'm actually, reading your emails and talking to you and making you a part of the podcast. So I hope that's something that you're interested in. So today, I've actually had a couple questions on this subject here. So I thought, this would probably be a pretty good one to bring up for an episode and stuff there. So episode 17 today is called Living with an Introvert. And let me tell you, I'm going to lead right out of the shotgun with this one here. I'm going to do everything in my power to not come across as sounding conceited, self-centered, anything like that. That is not the hope of this episode. This episode is, if you've never lived with an introvert, or you did and maybe you didn't understand why they did certain things the way they did, I'm hoping that something that is in this episode will help clarify things a little bit for you. But like I said, I'm going to try not to sound conceited and self-centered. I'm just being very honest and upfront with you, and I'm hoping that nobody really, is bothered by it, but I'm hoping there's something in this episode that will help you if you are considering living with an introvert. Because I'll tell you, an extrovert is, and don't get me wrong, you guys are part of my family too out there. You're my friends, you're my family out there, but you guys are a different breed than what us introverts are. Everybody knows introverts are very closed off, we're very quiet, we do our own thing. Extroverts are the exact opposite, which is actually good for us because we need somebody to kind of pull us out of our shell and get us off the couch from time to time. So we absolutely need our extrovert family and friends. We've got to have them around there to keep us introverts up and moving. Otherwise, I think we would be just fine just living in our homes and calling it good. I mean, I know I would, but so what I wanted to do today was just tell you some of the things why I do things a certain way. And my family's probably going to be able to really listen to this one and learn some things about me on this one. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to try, because I've been asked a few times there, living with me, and I'll be the first one to admit I'm very, very difficult to live with. Best way to that I think to describe me is I'm an INFJ for my personality type. If you don't know what that is, you can take the Briggs-Myers-Squibb test and stuff there. It'll tell you if you're extrovert, introvert, and then it breaks it down from there on which categories you are. And then I'm also haptophobic, which if you don't know what that is, that's a fear of touch from everything that I've went through in my life. So that makes it even more difficult to try to be in a relationship. So it's easier to just basically stay single because I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want anybody to have to change or walk in eggshells around me. So I'm very careful with that. I'm a perfectionist with ADD. Everybody knows that my house has to be a certain way. And Lord knows they try to put it back the exact same way. They do. They're wonderful. I have a wonderful family, and they work very hard at that to try to keep things the same way. But it's just not going to happen. They literally will walk around the house at times and stuff. And I've caught Alex doing this many times, and I know he does it to mess with me, and that's great. I mean, it's great. I love it. But he'll move like a little knick-knack on a shelf or something, just a little bit. I mean, for the most part, nobody else would ever catch or notice that little thing has been moved. And I'll walk in the door and instantly know that something has been shifted. And I know it drives him nuts. That's why I try to stay away from his area as much as I possibly can. Because he's got to have a safe zone here, because the rest of the house is, everything's got to be a certain way. The pictures are a certain way. The decorations are a certain way. All the way down to how the blankets are laid out on the back of the couches. And my friends all will say, "Oh my God, Sean, yeah, you're spot on." And I know I am. I'm really, really bad. About how my house has to be. It's very clean. It's very neat. Everything has its place. For me, but what they don't understand is that's my structure. That's basically like the foundation of who I am and how I can get through the day. I don't do change well. I admit that. I used to be able to do change a lot better when I was younger. But as I'm getting older, it's harder and harder. I used to move the living room around every 3 weeks, clean behind it, and then put the furniture in a different position, a different spot, and the TV and everything else there, just because I liked the change. And what I didn't realize is I was making myself upset by doing it, because that was something that my mom did. She liked moving things around all the time, and she enjoyed it. And I guess that rubbed off on me, because then I started doing it. But what I didn't realize, and it took a long time, and I didn't realize until actually I got a divorce and moved out and had my own place, and how important it was for everything to have a certain spot in a certain place, and it doesn't get moved. Because in the world that we live in, change is always happening. That's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. You have to adapt to change, and I'm not arguing that point. And I do pretty well with adapting to change. In the workplace, out in the world, I'm fine with it, because I have no control over that. The only little place of control that I have, a little sliver of hope that I have, is in my home. And I have to keep everything in a certain spot to keep myself grounded. And I know it sounds funny, but something as simple as putting a book out of place, or something just not being clean good enough, will literally keep me up all night. And like I said, I'm a perfectionist with ADD. I have worked very hard to try to be better about that, but I'll be honest, I don't think that's anything that I'm ever going to get better at. Maybe, I guess, if I talk to a professional, they could give me some keys or some tools to work with that would help. But after the divorce, I found that keeping everything in a certain spot and keeping things going in a certain way gave me the grounding that I needed to continue on throughout the day and to be able to handle everything that life throws at me. And I've talked to a lot of other introverts, and they're all the same way. They have to have everything a certain way. Now, granted, I've ran into a couple of them that were very, very messy. They didn't keep things clean. They're just disarray to the max. And that's fine. That's your life. If that's the way you want to, absolutely. I'm not saying there's anything against it. I'm not, I'm not trying to be a bad guy here. But what I'm saying is, for me to be able to function, I have to make sure that everything's in its place. I mean, it goes down all the way down to my truck. I mean, everything has to be a certain way in my truck for me to be able to rest at night. If I know something's not working right on my truck, then I can't rest at night. I'll toss and turn, and I'm stressed about it, because it's like, okay, well, something's going to break down. I need to get it fixed. I need to get it done right away. And it's all those little things. I have to keep everything, in a certain way. Everything has a spot in the house. It's just, even in the shed, in the truck, all of that stuff. And anybody that knows me is going to know that I'm 100% spot on here, and I know it drives my family crazy. I absolutely do, and I don't mean to, and I'm not doing it to basically get under their skin. But I've talked with other introverts, and they're all the same way. They have to have that structure to be able to function. And I'm not sure why, and I'm continuing to do research on it to try to find out. And maybe it's somebody that I just got to talk to on a psychological basis. I've got to talk to somebody professional. Maybe that would help me, because I was able to adapt to change a little bit easier, when I was married and my son was young. And we all know kids, they don't put anything back. Let's be honest. Their idea of cleaning their room is throwing everything in the closet and slamming the door before it all falls back out. We know that. So I was able to handle change easier back when I was married. But the moment that I got divorced, something, I don't know if it was like a switch that flipped in my head, and it just said, no more. This is the way we have to have it. And we need to do it that way. And I have never changed. I've been this way now for 14 years. And I can't change. I literally have tried moving things around or shifting things a little bit to try to force myself to get used to it, and I can't. I'll go back up, I'll get up in the middle of the night, go back out, reset everything, and put it back to the way it was. And like I said, my son, he's a saint for being able to live with me. No arguments there. I mean, he's amazing to be able to put up with my idiosyncrasies, all my little things that I have to have. He's incredible. I honestly, I don't think I could live with me. And I've told other people in the past, there's times I get on my own nerves. I just drive myself crazy. It's like, would you just stop and relax for a little bit? And I struggle with that, and it's a big struggle that I go through. But when I guess really when it comes down to is, if you're going to get involved in an introvert, remember they're very, very quiet. They're very closed off. They need a lot of recharge time. And one thing that always used to drive people nuts about me, and I don't let it bother me anymore because it comes down to kind of like self-preservation, is I'll just walk away. I'll just walk outside, go for a walk someplace, sit out on the deck, whatever it is, away from people. I'll just all of a sudden just disappear. And I did that when I was younger too, when we were up there taking drives in the hills or whatever, or when we were up cutting wood and bringing it back because we had a wood burning stove at home and we had to burn all of our wood to stay warm. So we were constantly cutting wood, splitting wood, stacking wood, all that stuff. And I really, really loved being outside in the woods and stuff. But there was many times that I would try to find a way to get away from it because the chainsaws were running, everybody was talking, the wood and stuff, the trees are hitting the ground. As they cut pieces, we'd roll them down the hill to the truck. The noise just gets to be too much. And that's one thing that I'm the older I get, the more sensitive I get to noises. I've always been sensitive to smells. I'll drive my family nuts. I'll walk in the door and go, "Oh, what is that smell?" They all look at me and they go, "What? We don't smell anything." For some reason, I have a heightened intolerance to smells. Everything has to smell great, and I've taken a lot of hits for having candles burning in my house or the air fresheners or whatever it is. I just cannot stand something not smelling right in my house. It has to smell nice and clean all the time, and I know that makes me very difficult to live with, and I freely admit it. But if you're going to live with an introvert, you have to understand that we're a little bit different. We're wired differently. And we're fine with that. So I'm hoping that you will be fine with it, because getting them to change is nearly impossible. We have our areas that we have to stay in. We have these guidelines that basically, okay, well, I know I don't like loud noises, or I don't like loud, bright lights or loud music, or you just have these certain guidelines that you have to stay in basically to keep your sanity. And that's what I try to do in my house. I mean, like at night and stuff there, I have classical music running. So that way it helps try to help me sleep. I don't sleep all that well, but it helps basically get my mind to shut down for a little bit. And sometimes I can get a couple hours of sleep in before I'm back up and running again. But I found that basically I won't think quite so much, because an INFJ for the personality type is a huge thinker. That's all we do. We overthink everything. And an introvert naturally overthinks everything. We're always what-ifing everything. That's just the way we are. That's the way we are wired. So that if you add that INFJ personality type on top of it all, all I do is, my mind just never shuts down. I got probably 40 or 50 tabs open in my mind that are constantly searching different subjects constantly. And it drives me nuts. So I know that if I'm with anybody, it drives them nuts as well. And I do my very best not to let them know what's going on or what I'm thinking or anything like that. But it's very, very tough. And when the house, for the most part there, is in disarray or something's out of place, my mind basically kicks up. It'll go into massive overdrive. And then I can't settle down. I'll start pacing the house. I will start just going crazy. I cannot sit and watch TV. I can't write. I can't do my podcast. I can't do anything until I reset the house back to the way it was. And once I do that, then I'm fine. So having something like that, and I'm sure I probably should talk to a professional and get some help. There's probably no doubt about that one. But I've lived this long with the way I am, and I know everybody says as you get older, you get more cranky, you get more inflexible, intolerant, and in some respects that's true. In other respects, I've become more tolerant to certain things, different people, different races, different everything there, because they're all wonderful. We're all one, and I see things differently as I get older. But when it comes down to my home and trying to keep myself going in the right direction, where I don't stress out about, okay, how am I going to get through today? If I leave the house and even if there's a spoon in the sink that wasn't put into the dishwasher, I will stress about that all day. I know that sounds stupid, but that's just the way I am. Everything has to be in a certain way, and that makes it nearly impossible for me to be in a relationship with anybody, because I really can't believe that I could ever find somebody that is the same way as me. Everything has to be cleaned, everything has to be put away in a certain spot, in a certain way, constantly. And like I said, I know I drive my son nuts at times. I'm sure there's times he'd like to just walk up and pop me right in the mouth. Just, you're driving me nuts, Dad, with your with your ADD and your perfectionism. I mean, and I understand that. And I do my very best to try to keep it reined back so I don't bother him. But it's a part of who I am, and I tried. And like I said, I probably should talk to a professional, and they might be able to give me some tools to work with to make things better or whatever. But to try to find somebody to live with for me is going to be nearly impossible. I just don't see it happening. I don't see anybody being able to put up with me, because it's I try to. I'm very understanding for my mate. And I'd be there 100% for him, and I promised that I would do everything in my power to try to change or be a little bit better. But if they want me to function, it's kind of like a computer. Everything has to be 100%. Your programming, your software, your hardware, everything has to be 100% or the computer doesn't work. It's kind of like when you give somebody an email address and you're one number off or you're a character off or whatever it is, the computer goes, I don't recognize it and I can't do it, and it'll kick it back saying it's unsent. It's really the same thing for me. If one little thing is out of place or not working right or whatever the problem is, then I don't work right. Then I start to basically short circuit. And that makes it very difficult to try to find somebody to live with, because I don't know of anybody that can live with that. I mean, let's be honest. I can barely tolerate me most of the time because I'm so that way. And I'm sure there's going to be therapists that are going to hear this and they're going to say, you know what, why don't you talk to me, Sean? I can give you some tools. And if that's true, email me at seangmorris@gmail.com and let's talk. Maybe what I can do is I can talk to you and I can help more people out that are like me. I know I'm not the only one. I know there's other introverts that are just like me. And I would like to be able to help them as well. So like I said, it's probably easier to find somebody to talk to professionally, because remember, I'm nobody special. I'm just somebody that works 40 hours a week, and I don't have a diploma on the wall. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm just not important. I just try to talk to people and in hopes of what I'm going through, maybe it will help them with what they're going through, or maybe there's something that I'm doing that will help them, or and I've had people write into me and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, maybe it'll help you. That's wonderful. I mean, I'm always up for suggestions, absolutely, and sometimes I can work those suggestions into the podcast and we can help other people. So that's what I try to do as much as I possibly can. But some of the things, and I've talked about some of these, and some of the other things that, being that I'm an introvert and a perfectionist and everything else, some of the hardest things to live with me on, and I wrote down a list of things that would make me just almost impossible to live with. And I freely admit these. I'm not going to hide this. I'm not going to say this isn't me, because there's a lot always going on. But the hardest things for me to live with a partner and stuff there is the constant noise my partner always makes. That's probably one of the biggest things. I'm very, very quiet. There's times that I just have to turn on soft music, and there's a neat little app or video that's on YouTube that just has the fireplace and the crackling and everything else. And I don't know who come up with that, but you're brilliant. So I'll turn that on the TV and I'll turn on some soft music, and it helps calm me down because there's so much noise in the world. I mean, you have your emails, you have your phones, you have your regular phones. I mean, you name it. There's so much noise. And I work in a shop where there's all kinds of large machinery constantly running back, drilling, cutting, welding. I mean, it is so obnoxiously loud, but that's what a shop is. So, you know, for me to go all day and listen to that and then come home, I have to basically shut everything down to allow myself to recharge. And if I come home, and I'm not saying that my partner would be horrible or they're doing it intentional. I know they're not doing it intentional, you know, but they might be out on the nights that I don't make, they might be out slamming pans around out in the kitchen or doing dishes, or they're just, I want to hear about their day. But sometimes, you know, the day, you know, they start talking and 2 hours later, you're sitting there and you're just, it's like, okay, is there an end to your day? I mean, it was only an 8-hour day. and like I said, I'm not trying to sound conceited here, but an introvert gets overwhelmed so very quickly. And don't get me wrong, I love hearing about my son's day. I'll sit there all day long and listen. Friday nights when we get together for our poker nights, we all sit down and we all talk about what's driving us nuts throughout the week. The very first thing, we get all of that, you know, darkness out of us right away, and then we can laugh and enjoy time, and everything gets a little bit better. But the constant noise that my partner always makes will just basically pushes me over the edge. So I have to be really, really careful because on top of it all, they don't always, you know, put stuff back where I need it to basically start over again. And if not, then they get mad at me because I'll go out and I'll correct it. I'll put it the way I need it so I'm fine. And then they take personal offense to it because they think that they can't do it well enough. And it's not that you can't do it well enough. The point is there's something in my head saying it has to be this way. And I know it drives them nuts. So it's probably easier for me never to get a partner because I don't know of anybody that's going to put up with me. Another thing is sometimes I can feel confined or even claustrophobic in my own home when living with somebody because it's kind of like you have that extra person there. My house is not that big, so to have another body wandering around the house sometimes can make me feel like, okay, I can't get away from you. It's not, and I know it's a common misconception that you're supposed to spend all kinds of time together when you're a couple. And don't get me wrong, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're together for because you enjoy each other's company, you enjoy being there for each other. But I'm the type there that I don't need you around all the time. I'm very, very independent. I'm very, very closed off. I do my own thing, and I'm fine with going places on my own. I'm okay with that. And then to come home after having a loud, busy, obnoxious day, and then to come home and then I've got another person that is encroaching on my space while I'm trying to basically reground myself and recharge, it can't be done. I mean, it gets to be too much. And I know that sounds funny, but I'm an introvert. It's like, leave me alone. I need some time. I might need a couple hours before I'm good enough to jump back into things again before I can tackle things. That's probably why I'm single, is because I don't want to put anybody through that, and I don't want anybody stressed. I don't want anybody walking on eggshells around me. I am me, and like I said, I have tried to change, and I can't. I keep working on it. That's one of along with my weight loss goals and stuff there, I'm also working on that. So this is kind of one of those, the mental part of losing weight and everything. Well, it goes along with this too, and I'm working on trying to get better at it as much as I possibly can. But an introvert, and I've seen it many, many times on, you see it on sites, or you see it on, on Facebook, you see the little memes and stuff there, which is really cool. And an introvert says basically, yes, we want somebody around, we want somebody important in our life, just not all the time. A couple, 3 times a week, good enough. I mean, you can have your own place. I am fine with that. I don't want, to actually live with somebody again. I'm not sure that I'm capable of doing that anymore because I'm so set in my ways, and I have to have certain things a certain way. And I know that sounds funny. And like I said, I'm not trying to come across as conceited or self-centered or narcissistic or anything like that. I'm just telling you I'm an introvert. This is what I go through. And I'm thinking that, after who I've talked to, there's a lot of other introverts that go through this. So if you're thinking about jumping into a relationship with them and then on top of it all living with them, these are things that you got to consider. And I'm not saying that every introvert is this way, but for the ones that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of introverts, we all pretty much are this way. So I'm hoping this episode here will basically let you know this is what you're up against. So before you move in together and start combining your lives together, just know this is kind of what you're up against. And like another one that I talked about, I have to have everything a certain way in my house to function 100%. Excuse me. And I know that doesn't sound really, really nice, but like I said, that's my foundation. That's my rock. That's basically my starting space is my home. And if my home is in disarray or something's not working right or something's not cleaned right, then I'm in trouble and I can't function at work. I'll stress about it all day at work, and then my work suffers. And when I get home, that's the first thing I do is I fix it so I can get things settled back down again. And I've noticed, and that has gotten worse as I gotten older. And like I said, maybe I need to talk to some professional that can give me tools to help. I don't know, but this is just what I'm going through, and I know there's other folks like me that do go through this as well. Keeping the house as clean as I like it. I don't do clutter and I don't do messiness. I like the house. It's not the type of where you're afraid to sit on anything, but I guarantee you could eat off the floor. That's just the way I keep my home, and that's the way I keep it. I'm constantly dusting, vacuuming, cleaning the floors, cleaning the kitchen, the bathrooms, everything. Everything is, when you come in, you can feel comfortable is the way it is. I mean, it's not perfect. Like I used to have a grandma that had plastic that was over her sofa and everything else because she was so worried about it getting dirty. Well, you would sit on it, slide right off. I never understood that thought. You never could sit on the couch and be comfortable because you literally would slide off. But her house was immaculate. I mean, there wasn't you couldn't even find a speck of dust downstairs in the crawl cellar. She was such a clean freak, and that must have rubbed off on me. I'm not quite that bad, but I do like making sure that my house is tidy, neat, and clean all the time. I work very hard at it. I spend several days a week just cleaning, making sure that everything's okay, and so that way when I come home, I feel comfortable. And if anybody was to come over to the house, they'll feel comfortable, because I don't want them to come in and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you sit down on the couch and you sit on chips. That's just yuck. And you hear crunch, crunch, crunch when you're trying to, on a soft couch. That just isn't good. Or you can't find room in the sink because all the dishes are full. That'll never happen in my house. If it is, then there's something wrong, and you better lock me up in a funny farm, I think, is probably where I need to go at that point. Another partner, some people like to have, now during the day, I do like having curtains open, but I run into migraines a lot. I like it a little bit brighter during the day, but at night I like everything closed off so I feel secure and nobody can see in basically there. But I've lived with people and stuff there where they have to have every light on in the house. They have to have every window open. They have to, it's so bright and so overwhelming. It doesn't feel cozy. I mean, it's like, for the most part, I guess, living in a hospital, because it's always so bright and so white and so overwhelming. It's like, no, I can't do this. So I try to, during the day and stuff there, I do have a few curtains open. I have windows open, so there's constant air flowing through. So that way I don't feel like I'm claustrophobic and all closed off. But at night, then everything's all, I have one light on and that's it. I don't have a whole lot. And if I have a migraine, then it's even worse. I don't even have that one on. So, another thing that hardest for me, like I talked about, is if I want to make changes to the house, I just do them. I don't ask for permission or if they will like the changes. It's so nice that, okay, it's my house. I'll do what I want. I'll hang up the pictures that I want hanging up, or if you want to swap out the TV or the couch or anything like that, I can just make changes. Or if I want to paint a certain wall a certain color, I don't have to go through, people to do it. I just do it, and it's kind of nice. And like I said, I'm not trying to sound conceited or anything like this, but these are just things that, that makes living with somebody else really, really hard for me. It's not that I don't want somebody around. I would love to have somebody around in my life to talk to and share my life with. But I have to also acknowledge my shortcomings, and that's what I'm doing with this episode, in the hopes of, I know there's other folks like me that are out there. So if you're thinking about jumping into a relationship with, an introvert, I think these are things that you really need to consider. And they're going to have different things that bother them. And I really honestly think you need to sit down and you need to talk about it. You need to be honest. You have to be honest with each other. Don't try to sugarcoat anything. I mean, you're talking about sharing your life together. You're going to be sharing your bills together, your money together, your food together, everything. And I think it's a big thing that you need to sit down and make sure you have all of this stuff worked out before you combine your lives. Because if you don't, I've seen too many times where things fall apart, because it's like, they'll start saying, well, this bothers me about them, or that bothers me about them, or I don't know if I can live with this. Well, yes, you're always learning about that other person. I'm not disputing that. But I think sitting down and having the conversation prior to moving in is a big thing. And honestly, I've only lived with one person, and that's my ex-wife. And in some respects, I wish I would have asked more questions, but honestly, she probably was a saint for living with me, because I had to have everything a certain way. And when I was married, I honestly didn't understand everything that I'm talking about today. I didn't understand about being an introvert. I didn't understand about being an INFJ or haptophobic or anything like that. I didn't dig into that, because I just basically, okay, well, I'm just, something's wrong with me, something's wired, something's backwards, something's shorted out, something this or that or this or that, whatever it was. I didn't think about it. It wasn't until I got divorced and moved out on my own when I had to do some serious soul searching, and I had to go back to the books, to the very, very beginning of what makes Sean. And once I started doing that and I started learning about all of this stuff, it was like, this is why I do certain things, or this is why I think a certain way, or why I have to keep things a certain way. And it wasn't until I started doing some research and doing a lot of self-introspection, holy cow, let me tell you, if you have never dug in to yourself for some self-introspection and actually examine and look to see how you really are, oh man, you are in for a change. Let me tell you that there, because it's like you do things you don't even know why you do them, and it just happens. It's like, okay, why do I do this? Where does this come from? And when I started digging into my personality type, I'm an INFJ, and like I said, take the test, the Briggs-Meyer test, and take it and find out where you might be an extrovert, you might be an introvert, you might be, you might be a thinker, you might be a doer, you might be, the J is judgmental, the F, there's so many different things that they stand for. And until you start digging in, and learning about yourself, it's like, holy cow, you didn't even realize you do things for a certain way. And I was actually really, once I took that test, it was like, I actually, it really bothered me. It was like, it really plucked me off. And in INFJ, there's less than 1% of us with this personality type in the entire world. It is the rarest personality type that you will find. And it fits because of the way I am. I know I'm a handful. I know I'm hard to live with. And I get told all the time from my family, because they try to do things for me or try to be nice or whatever, and I just still continue to go do it. I won't let them help me. And they call me stubborn and hard to live with. And they're absolutely right. I'm not disputing that any way, shape, or form. They've got that figured out. But this is unfortunately the way that I am, and I've done some changing. And like I said, there's been a lot of mental changing and stuff there that I have done with my weight loss journey that I'm on. I'm down about 240 pounds. Not bad for 23 months. I'm almost ready to head into my 24th month. That'll be December. And I'm getting there, and I'm proud of how far I've come. There's just some things that I have to have basically as a foundation. And this is the way that I keep my home, the way I do things. And I am Mr. Stuck on a routine. You literally, Alex has said, I could set a watch to you. He said, you are such in a routine. He said, it's scary. He said, I know exactly when you're going to do something, when you're going to do it. I said, that's true. And I said, it's probably not the healthiest way to live, but it's the way that I function with life. That's how I function with stress, with all the noise, just everything that goes on with life. This is how I do it. And if I don't have my home in a perfect, and I mean perfect, it has to be in a perfect certain way, then I can't function. It will mess with me at work. It will mess with me out when I'm out with friends. I'll sit there and I'll stress about it, and they can see it in my face. And it makes it very difficult to try to enjoy life. I know it sounds funny, but if you're an introvert like me, I'm sure you're understanding where I'm coming from to try to get through it. So what I thought I would do is I want to tell you guys about some of the things that I do that helped me live with somebody else. So in case you're thinking about jumping into a relationship with somebody and moving in together and combining your lives, which, hey, I'm all for it. I think that's fantastic. You should be able to share your life with somebody. They should love to be with you. And just know that if you're going to get involved with an introvert, these are some of the things that you might be up against. And I'm sure that my ex-wife would probably go, yep, that's pretty much it, stuff. And I'm sure she was a saint for living with me, for trying to put up with all my stuff. But some of the things that I do that helped me live with somebody else was I created a quiet zone in my house that I could go to when I needed to be left alone or recenter and reground myself. And then there was times where it may not have been in the house. I may be out in the yard, or I may have been, I had a spot, I had a very, very small shed. When I was married, I tried woodworking and stuff and making things. Well, I come to find out I stink at woodworking. I can't make anything. I can't even put up a shelf right with a level on a wall. It will still be crooked. I am absolutely impossible when it comes to that stuff. But I needed a quiet zone. I needed to get away from people, and I needed to be left alone for a while. And that's what I did, is I created a quiet zone to help me when there was just too much. And especially when you go through the holidays, you have Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, you have all those things. The 4th of July, we would get together, and there's always so much noise and so many people and so much going on that when I would get back home, I'd have to go right away to that quiet zone to allow myself to reground and recenter. Another thing that I started to, and I didn't do this right away in the beginning, and I wish I would have, and now everybody understands it and stuff there, but I didn't do this a whole lot when I was married. I wish I would have made it clear that when I wander off, I need to be left alone for a while. I'm not trying to be rude in any way, shape, or form. But right now, at that moment, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I needed some alone time to recharge and recenter. I would literally just walk away from, I wouldn't walk out mid-conversation, but when the conversation was over, I would literally just turn and walk away. And everybody accused me of being rude, mean, self-centered. And it's like, you don't understand. Us introverts, when our social meter runs out of gas, it's now. There's nothing left. It's not like you're just sputtering and you might be able to make it another 5 minutes. It's either all or nothing with us. And I wish I would have made it clear in the beginning that if I just wander away, leave me alone for 15, 20 minutes, allow me to recenter, reground, get left alone, and then I can come back in and make another run at it. And that's what I would do when when my parents were alive. They had a spot off to the east side of the house, and they had a nice little log wood chair and stuff there that I would, a bench and stuff, and I would sit on. And there were just times that I would just sit there and I would get left alone. Most time I didn't get left alone more than about 10 minutes, and somebody was out bothering me and wondering what I was doing. And it's like, I just need a few minutes. It's too much. It's like being in the middle of a rock concert with all the lights blazing in your eyes. You have every stereo speaker in your ears blasting right at you with everything that it's got. And it gets to be so overwhelming. Then you got the crowd that's screaming and bouncing you around and like you're in a mosh pit and everything else. That's how I get to feeling at times. It's too much. And I wish people would understand that a little bit more. And unless you're an introvert and going through this, I know it's very difficult to understand. My extrovert family and friends out there, you guys are wonderful. And you guys would thrive in that environment. You guys would love it. I mean, because you need constant, external stimuli to keep going. That's how extroverts work. Introverts get our stimulation and everything from inside us, inside our heads and everything that we do. So I know that you guys would thrive in that, but for me, that's just overwhelming. It just gets to be too much. The other times, some things that I would do is I'd go for a drive alone when I needed to work things out in my head, or I had a problem that I didn't know how to solve. And sometimes I would drive around in silence. It's really good, if it's nice, you can roll all the windows down and out so the air's flowing through the truck and everything there. It just kind of like, you get kind of recharged. It's like Mother Nature with the wind is recharging you, kind of like taking the stress off of you and everything. It really, really helps me. And then there's other times that I'll do that, but I may crank the stereo because I need to get my mind rolling. And it seems to help. I can solve some problems. Basically can recharge. So going for a drive once in a while, it helps me. It helps basically fire things back up. It allows me to reground, recenter. I try to take a lot of drives, and Willow and I will go for hikes up in the hills. Just anything to try to get out and get away for a little bit, because it just gets to be so much after a while. And this world is so loud and so noisy. It's just almost too much for us introverts. Another thing that helps me live with someone, and this may sound bad, but I prefer to do the house cleaning. To me, I just need to know that when it's been done and how it's been done, because everybody cleans differently. Some people, and I know there's people out there that clean better than I do. No arguments there. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give them a heck of a run for their money, because my house is spotless, and that's the way I like to keep it. And I know not everybody cleans the same way, and having a clean house goes right along with all the organization, everything in its place, right along with it there. Because if my house is a little bit dirty, then I can't function. Then I'm just like, okay, I can't do this. This is too much. And I've talked to other couple people and stuff. They're the same way. They have to have the house just spotless, so that way when they come home after work, everything's clean in place, so you can make supper or do laundry, or sometimes just sit down and read a book. I mean, there's times that a lot of the times I'll record all my podcasts after I come home from work, so that way if I know that the house is clean, then I don't have to stress about, okay, well, I need to get this done, I need to do dusting, or I need to mop the floor, or I need to vacuum, whatever it is. I make sure that the house is perfect, so that way when I sit down for the podcast, I can sit down comfortably and I don't have to stress about, well, I got to get this done, or I got to get that done. Or, I mean, I still do anyway, don't get me wrong. It's part of my head that's constantly running and never shuts off. But if I know that everything's in place and fine, then it makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to, do my podcast or write my book. Or sometimes there's just times that I come home and I just sit down and just watch a little bit of TV. I just relax. It's just, or read, or look through my Black Forest magazine that I absolutely love, and buy more things for the house. And I get in all kinds of trouble for that one. Another thing is I had hobbies and projects that I did on my own that allowed me to stay away from people and recharge. And I said stay away from people, and you're probably thinking, geez, Sean, that's kind of rude. You don't seem to understand. I give all the time. Everybody else, my family comes first. Willow comes first. My friends come first. Everybody comes first. I come second. And on the rare occasion that I have to accidentally put myself first because I need to recharge or I need to reground, trust me, it is for a good reason. I need to do this. So most of the time that's when I walk away. And I most people understand now that if I just walk away, they just leave me alone for a while. And I'm okay with, if I've been out there for a half hour or something like that, if somebody comes back out, that's fine. Sometimes I don't realize the time that has passed because it goes so quick. Now, a half hour, takes at least 6 hours at work. But when you're at home, a half hour, about 10 seconds. Time always seems to go faster at home when you're not working. And I don't mind, somebody coming out and checking on me after a while, but for the first 10, 20 minutes, I just need to get away from everybody because I'm feeling claustrophobic. I'm feeling locked up. Kind of like if you're in one of those, those white coats that make you hug yourself and you can't move your arms, but yet you just feel really confined and you can't do anything. That's how I feel at times. And when I walk away, typically that's the feeling that I have. And I know I've talked to other people and they feel the same way. They have different analogies and descriptions for how they feel. But when you break it down, it's the same thing. You're overwhelmed, it's too much, and you need to reground. So if you're thinking about getting into a relationship with an introvert, and then on top of it all, if you're thinking about moving in with an introvert, I'm hoping there's something in this episode here that's going to help you. Now, take into account, now, we're not all identical in any way, shape, or form. I know there's other introverts that function better than I do. But all I can do is I'm hoping this will give you something to work with, so you start to understand maybe a little bit where we're coming from. Because change comes hard for most of us introverts. We need the schedule. We need our routine. We need all of that stuff. We need that structure to help us get through the day. And I know that sounds funny, but that's the only way that I can get through the days is with that kind of structure. And you would think there that, because I'm at work, I can handle change any day of the week. Doesn't bother me a bit. When I'm at work, I don't care. You can change 50 things, and I'm fine with it. But you can't change one thing when I'm at home. So if you're actually thinking about being a part of an introvert's life, if you're an introvert, then that's going to be okay. You're going to naturally understand where we're coming from, and it should be an easy transition. The only thing that I found there is if introverts get with introverts, sometimes there's nothing to pull you out of your shell because you're both perfectly comfortable at home. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there's also a lot out in the world where, there's many times that I'll just go and sit by the lake or by a creek or go for a hike or, there's all kinds of different things to do. And sometimes when you get two introverts together, sometimes you can just get so comfortable not doing anything and staying at home that you kind of miss out on life a little bit too. So for the extrovert family and family members that are listening to this out there, I want to thank you so much for getting us out of our comfort zones once in a while, not all the time, but once in a while, and making us go out and live life a little bit, because I think we need that. Surprise visits and stuff are pretty tough on us. Keep those in mind. And I understand friends always just pop by. Don't get me wrong. And I'm okay with it. Most of the time, if you can send a text 5-10 minutes early before you're going to pop in, most of the time that really, really helps us introverts out. So I guess if you're gonna take anything away from today, if you're gonna live with an introvert and want to be part of their lives, which we thank you for, don't get me wrong, it's kind of like we want to be invited to the party. We're not going, but we want to be invited so we feel included. That's kind of how we are. And I know that sounds weird, and there's a lot of contradictions to us. And every time I turn around, I'm learning a new contradiction to myself. I mean, it's just like, holy cow, okay. Yin and yang, black and white. It's this oil and water. I mean, it's so weird. It's amazing how we even function. I'll be honest. It's like, how do we get through life? But we do. And I'm so proud of us introverts. I mean, we take on a lot. There's a lot that we have to push through. And you guys are amazing out there. And our extrovert friends are awesome too. That keeps us going. But before there's a couple things here that I'm going to say real quick. Before you move in with an introvert, I'm hoping you remember these things. Respect their space and boundaries. I think that's a huge thing for them. If you do that and give them the space necessary and allow them to recharge, and give them for their stuff and everything there, I honestly think they will be able to respond. They'll be able to recharge faster and bounce back faster from change and everything else. Give them time alone and time to recharge. That one there is probably paramount more than anything else. They just keep in mind that we need time to recharge. Our social batteries drain just boom, just right on the spot. It doesn't take us long. Spontaneity is fine. Just keep it to a minimum. That one there's I'm more impulsive than most introverts that I've learned. Is I'd rather just, okay, call me up, hey, let's go grab lunch. Fine, let's go grab lunch, instead of planning for it, because they said, okay, well, on Monday let's go out for lunch at noon. Okay, well, this is Friday, so now I got to stress about it for 3 days before we go out, and I actually hate it worse, and then I dread it. So for me, spontaneity is okay, but I know for most introverts it's not. And I still have to keep my spontaneity to a minimum, but I'm more impulsive than most introverts. Keep the noise down and lights to a minimum. I've found that makes a big difference on us. Especially since I have a lot of migraines, so that's helpful. But keeping the noise down, it basically will help us introverts recharge and be able to handle more. So all I can say is keep the noise and lights to a minimum, and you'll find that we'll do a little bit better. And the last thing that I have for, I'm hoping this will help you, is give them time to open up and talk to you. If you give an introvert time to be comfortable around you, they will talk your ear off. Once they start feeling comfortable, that's the reason I said that is because that is basically a mirror image of me. I have my small talk and different things that I can do, but to get down to the real in-depth stuff, it takes time for me to trust you. It takes time for me to want to tell you. But once I start opening up to you, and then it's kind of like the floodgates just, whew, here they all come. and I'll tell you pretty much anything, and I'll talk your ear off at that point. But up to that point, I may not say a whole lot. I do a lot of talking, and I make noise, and it makes people happy, but it doesn't mean that you're actually learning anything about me. I'm pretty good at deflecting questions and keeping the topic off me, just mainly because introverts don't want to be the center of attention, and I'll be right there along with it. So as long as you give your introvert new friend and stuff there time to adjust to this way of living, you're going to have an incredible friend that's going to be there for you, and they're going to want you as a part of their life. Just know that I'm hoping something in these episodes here will help you understand why we do things a certain way and why we are a certain way. I'm hoping it helps, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful relationship together, and I hope living together really, really helps, and it's the best thing that either one of you will ever do. Honestly, I really hope it works out for you guys. So, okay, that's going to end today's podcast there. That's all the information that I've got for you on this one here. Hopefully there's something in there that you will be able to take away from it and and help you understand your introvert a little bit more. So, as always, I'm going to end it with the typical dad joke of the day. So, if you guys are ready to go, here is the dad joke of the day. Do you know where surfers learn to surf? They learn at boarding school. I saw your eyes roll. Because that is so good. I love that one when I talked about that and I found that one. So thanks so much for listening. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you guys sharing the podcast, being a part of everything, and making me part of your life for a few minutes. And as always, all my love and support,